teenagers. And they in turn love me, say, hey, naughty, naughty. I don't see as much of them as I used to, alas. I miss them. Thinkst thou it unseemly, a bird of my years so eagerly ensnared in what was, up to a point, fairly standard issue teen drama? I'm not an idiot. I did not think myself one of them. One must have good boundaries to work with teenagers, coaches, clergy. I've never had good boundaries. It's not the teenager's fault I've a horror of being excluded. And I tried not to take personal those instances when my company was most rudely declared unwelcome. Intimate moments, obviously, but also, hey, is got game still a thing that people doth say? Oh, shit. I do date myself, but 'tis not impudence if a teenager on the make prefers a wingmate more rich in collagen than I get it. I'm someone's mom. Kinda killed the hot. Teenagers crave space, autonomy. Give them excess of it. And is no crime for them to hold back a few secrets from their parents. They knew I'd never rat them out. Now, of course, I wish I'd been a little bit less cool about everything. It's not the prettiest picture I paint thee tonight, but on my honor, 'tis larded through with accuracy. So, to begin at the beginning, was summer, July, hot as balls. You know, people never mention the weather, but I swear it did play a part. Those steam bath vibes, such a swelter up from the toe of our Calabrian boot. The plants o'er perching their pots, their scent as heavy as honey, shameless insects scraping their thighs together as they did sport at music and mating. It was obscene. Overripe. And her birthday was coming up. Lamastide, she would have been 14. You know, there's been a lot of discussion about this period in my life, a lot of misinformation, and frankly, misrepresentation. I know thou dost thirst for the salacious deeds. But a word of advice, should a thing like this e'er happen to you, get your story out there as quickly as possible. Make it a matter of public record. Be first, ideally. Because whosoe'er beats you to the punch will spout such falderall as pleases them, and believest thou me, 'tis very, very difficult to correct the shit people don't say. Especially them as weren't even there. Myself for a moment. Right, so, high summer, nigh unto Lamastide, we were sweltering, but, you know, we had a different relationship to the heat. Back then, a 93-degree day, it just did not foretell the planet's end. Whereas you guys, well, at least you got air conditioning. Apologies for hailing you thusly. You guys, 'tis a generational habit. I did not mean to microaggress. I will do better in the future. So to continue setting the tale, a party didst loom. Oh, those Capulet wingdings were epic, as were the labors that preceded them. Worth it though, right? Jugglers, feasting, a trained bear who didst caper when its trainer piped a merry tune, music, that boy? I've been suckled on lies. Verona, dust best, your city for metropolitan landmass, but its population would a scarce fit inside the Bowery Ballroom. In simple math, the only children of two incredibly well-positioned families, alike as not in age, thinks thou they'd never clapped eyes on each other? We have but one central well, and we all drew water daily. And the boys who didst hang around there were beginning to register. She was 13, almost 14, and enthralled to the moon. The constant, inconstant moon. I'm not suggesting that they spoke. They never spoke. She was chaperoned at all times. But, yeah, they knew of each other. Their antennae were up. I mean, he certainly was not on the guest list that night. Our door person clearly gave not a tinker's fart, whom he admitted. that is the problem with underpaying one's underlings. We will supplement our pittance howsoe'er we are able. No doubt some Montague silver had creased a palm. Howsoever those rowdy Montagues and Montague adjacents did find their way in, they showed little inclination to fade into the woodwork, conspicuous as could be in their tricked out codpieces, and cocky as the day is long. Lord Tybalt, my lady's cousin, a strapping knave of some 20 years, and a credit to House Capulet, did speak of gathering his kinsmen to round him up and chuck him out, but it didn't mount to much. People were drinking, making merry. It wasn't as if these young ruffians threatened our lives. Their primary objectives were cavorting, carousing, and laying siege to our Capulet casks. I had just come off the dance floor to pour myself another tankard when I did spy my bright jewel slinking behind a potted cypress with what's-its name? The teenage vapor trail? Now that's an aroma one does not soon forget, that heady blend of love's baby soft and boy pits. Rememberest thou that? Oh, you do? Oh, what ho, my Julio, I did quoth inside my head. Thou hast forsaken the playground for a different type of slide. Very long, very slippery. Should have been fun. Who knew the structure was unsound, crumbled right out from beneath her. Him too, much as I'd like to strangle the little fucker. Let's hasten ahead towards bedtime. I'm at the window attempting to get us a bit of ventilation when what should my wondering eye appear, slinking twixt the shadows of our garden? It was odd how my lady chose this moment to declare herself in desperate need of air. No ordinary window would suffice. The girl needed out. Well, shall I accompany you, my lamb? No, God! I'm not a baby. I will not toddle twixt the guardrails and dash my brains out on the flagstones below. Our bedchamber did open out onto a terrace of like a deck. I'm forgetting the, I guess I'm in the zone for senior moments. Oh, hello. Like a, one of those protuberances that do stick out from the side of a building. You can festoon it with laundry on a sunny day. Not a fire escape, like a ledge. Sufficient wide to loll on. Ours was of a size to accommodate the both of them. Lord knows how he managed to Spider-Man his way across the stone walls, but he did. And the two of them, from the sounds of it, wasted very little time in getting better acquainted. Teenagers. Meanwhile, I'm stuck inside, back to the window, praying to the devil and all his apostles that her lady mother won't roll up, which she very well could have. Now, of course, I wish she would have. That bud needed nipping. My office did authorize me to perform such a function, but constitutionally speaking, I'm really more of an enabler. Fact not lost on my young mistress. That minx did not slow her roll for a single second, even knowing the sort of scalding I would be in for if her little escapade were discovered. Oh well. The situation called for privacy at any price. 'Twas my honor to be its conduit and to provide regular check-ins to curb events of a conceptual nature. What ho, friends? How goes it out there? Think so? At time we pack it in for the night? No! God, don't come out here! Their parting was such sweetly voluptuous sorrow, I thought I would never reel her back inside. And then, when I did, she climbed up on me, would not spit so much as a single pearl. Oh, this was to be my thanks, just teeth, prayers, lights, nighty-night. She'd been given a sweetmeat she did not wish to share, rolling it silently about her tongue, sucking its sweetness all night long. And then in the morning, when she did wake, she was on me like a beast, howling, "Oh God, please find him!" I had hoped to sluggard a bed, as post-party Capulet custom did allow, but I also live to serve teenagers. So, shouldering my market basket as pretext, I set off to cruise underage boys in piazza still wet with dew. Mercifully, it did not take me long to find him and his crew. I doubt they'd even been abed yet, loitering round the fountain. Their leader was a quenching sort of drink, long and tall, but goofy-like, a saucy sort of merchant, but his purse quite lacked for comedy gold. Would not stop busting my chops. Actually, might I importune one of you lads to give us a sampling of his wit? You may stand and I may sit.
How say you, fellows? Shall I use this withered bag to tote my cucumber? On closer inspection, I did misspeak. 'Tis no bag. 'Tis a hard-handled pigskin. Blech. I shall not rush twixt those ancient goalposts.
Bravo! Hands for our young Mercutians! Hold him not accountable for that varlet's lack of witty japery. We did bandy it back and forth for a while until we'd chewed all flavor from the sport. And then he did rally his mates to shove off in search of fresh mischief, as young boys are wont. I gave all leave, save Romeo, whom I detained with gentle paw until his crew had rounded the corner. Then I hook him by the codpiece. He said, "Kiss me thou this, if with my mistress's affections thou dost trifle." He's like, "What? God, no! I swear by the moon." I'm like, "What's that supposed to be? Poetry? I give you one chance to prove yourself worthy of her fondness, and you do swear by the fucking moon?" His eyes didst puddle, his lower lip didst jiggle. He molested his own doublet as he fell to his knees, calling upon the sun, stars, Mercury, Mars, Venus, and all celestial bodies, save the moon, to strike him dead, if slightest harm should befall any dear part of her, her head, her heart, her breast. That tiny tendril nestled damply in the curve of her neck. Pretty birds. Would I could shove him up his ass. Or that fucking Franciscan friars. At the time, I admit, I was moved by this young Montague's sincerity. 'Tis a rare quality in a boy his age, if thou wilt allow a withered pigskin one tiny binary observation. It made me want to help him. So, together, we did hatch a plot whereby I would send her to him at the church later that afternoon, so that the friar could sanctify their union, make things legal before either set of parents could grow wise. Lordy, what I wouldn't give for a time machine. At the age my lady was, 'tis not so unusual to send an intermediary to determine if the object of your affection doth return my fondness. In retrospect, I should have just lied. What cause would she have had to suspect if on my return I didst dissemble? Oh, girl. I hate to be the one to tell you this. I know he made it seem like he was super into you or whatever last night, but he's not. He said he just likes you as a friend. Shut up about his ex. Oh, it was so weird and inappropriate. God, he's such a dick. I might have felt a twinge of guilt as her tears did fall upon my bosom, but only for so long as it took those self-same tears to extinguish the embers that boy had kindled there. Romeo. What's Romeo to us? He is not hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any part belonging to a man, just some dreamy doe-eyed. You know, you take your average teenage boy and you plop him down in the middle of that balcony scene. Fucking hell, that's the word, balcony. The passionate purple promises pledged out on that thing would have been quite sufficient to turn your average teenage boy chicken, a bird well versed in the arts of backpedaling, roasting, and speaking shit in the locker room. But not this banana. He was into it 100%. As I need not mention, was she. When I did return and let slip that the friar was waiting to secret marry them a few hours hence, she were near giddy. She was pathological with joy. It did double my vision. Before me I saw both the bride and the merry young imp I taught to drink from a cup and piss in a pot, who nightly refused to say her prayers until she had bid good night to the moon and the stars and the bowl and the cup and the lamp and the chair and every other fucking thing she could see in her bedchamber, so as to delay the moment she must leave off chattering and close her eyes. An enemy of sleep, that one. And so full of life, as both toddler and bride-to-be bouncing atop the bedclothes, trumpeting news of her upcoming nuptials to her old friends, the lamp and the chair and the cup and a volume that could well pierce parental ears. Missus, I begged, canst not keep it down? You can't, the rest, 'tis an entendre of the most doubled nature. A reference to her beloved's holy thistle. His pipe, his pen, for God's sake, his penis. Her parents would have died had they heard me spoke to her so, but technically she was still a maid. At the appointed hour, She did turtle forth to that church like a stone flung from a trebuchet. My orders were to tarry in the hall to distract her folks with prattle should either show signs of venturing out. If they requested an audience with their daughter, I was to say, "Oh, you just missed her. She hath preceded me to confession." Confession was our motherfucker. Is that still the term for the ruse which doth pull the wool across maternal eyes? Our confessions were mostly sham, 'tis true, but they did allow us to slip the yoke for many a merry adventure. Nothing too earth-shaking, just like an illicit taste of gnocchi in a dim-lit alley. Get your mind out of the gutter, sister. Sometimes a salami is but a salami. And our deceptions were harmless. When stacked against the sins of that fucking friar, does it not follow that a man of God, a man of the cloth, should know enough to put the brakes on this ill-advised teenage matrimony? Or at the very least, insist upon a mandatory waiting period. It's like every safety failed. I do wish I'd been able to attend the ceremony, though. Her wedding was her favorite game I expect it was a form of dress-up. Her outfit was always accorded far more import than the groom. It fell to me or one of the boy cousins to fill that role, whoever was handy. Do children still sport at such games? I know it's a much less binary world these days. One might have two brides, two grooms, as you like it. Just very well. But notice about this. My little Julie would have scratched any fair 4-year-old who didst try to stake a claim in the bridal finery she didst covet for herself alone, the tight-clutched bouquet of dandelion and fleabane, the tattered cast-off wimple she conceived of as a veil of finest fairy-spun gossamer. Her real wedding must have seemed a mere queef compared to those. She returned from it unescorted. "Well," I quoth. "Well, what?" she quoth back. "You know what?" I quoth. "No," she quoth back. "What?" "Teenagers." I had better luck when I did address myself to her ticklish pits. "Didst thou, Julie? Didst thou? Oh, get off of me, crone! Oh, I'll get off without a spill. Didst thou do it? Yes! Yes, okay, yes! Yes! Beshrew me. Her happiness was my happiness. Whomsoe'er she loved, I would love too. Oh, blessed child, blessed Romeo." "I mean, we didn't do it, if that's what you're insinuating," she continued upon regaining her breath. "But leave the balcony door unlocked tonight, okay? He's gonna send his man by with a ladder." At this, reality did encroach. How long could Lord Capulet's ignorance go uncorrupted? His maid had made most grievous compact with the enemy. I feared a shit show did loom. But such presentiments can make but poor bridal gift. I resolved to button my lip, pick the lock, cast away the key, and let no tentacle of anxiety escape my lips till tomorrow. She'd have thanked me for it had she known that girl never considered the impact of her actions before their execution. Chafed at any who did suggest that 'twas the most prudent course. She wanted what she wanted when she wanted it. A illicit sweet, a doomed puppy, a pair of sleeves her lady mother didst deem too sexy for a maid of her years. Somehow, she always roped me in as her federary, swore up and down that she would shoulder 100% of the blame if our little crime was discovered. And then, when a not-so-little crime was discovered, she shrank up like a spider on a hot skillet, leaving me to jabber faster than I could think. Oh well, it's what we nurses are for, I expect, helping people. And she was but a baby, 13. How old are you? 23. 23. Oh, bless you. Are beginning to develop a bit of impulse control? No, my maid had it not. Oh, she was a terrible waiter, that one. The hours that followed her hand fasting were torture. Oh, where is he? When is he coming? What if he doesn't come? Oh, what says the clock? Why won't the sun set? As if Helios and his horses take orders from horned-up young maids. All in good time, my pretty, I didst quoth, has forgot. He is yours for all eternity. That sent her into a swoon. I know, maybe I'd feel differently had I been the one out on that balcony, but in truth, they weren't all that amazing. It was cute enough, I guess. Sincere, I didn't say that already. Between us, actually a little bit clueless. He kept trying to tip me, as if I were some ordinary messenger. The most interesting thing about him was the rowdy company he did keep. Truly, this kid was no great shakes. I mean, he had that sensitive bee-stung look, as graces some of them on their way to filling out entirely. Maybe the tiniest bit non-binary? Let's go for that. I'm more the leather codpiece type. Seekst thou my opinion? The one to beat was Paris. Have I spake to thee of the County Paris yet? Oh, 'tis a grievous oversight. Paris was gorgeous, rich, beautiful clothes, beautiful manners, intelligent, piercing eyes. Paris was a man, you know what I mean? Like, a young man, to be sure. That's partly what I liked about him. But a man, old enough to have some discernment, some restraint, like an eagle. Romeo killed him. You know that, right? Because I feel like that little detail tends to fade into the background of a lot of This was straight up butchery from what I hear. Murder most foul. What a waste. My mistress Mouse never warmed to Paris. He could have made any number of lovers exceedingly happy. It was most vexing. How to explain it? Well, my lamb was wonderful, but slightly perverse. Not only was Paris handsome, wealthy, friendly, respectful, and have I mentioned super into her? He was available, and her parents approved. So therein lies the rub. Or, as pertains to poor Paris, the lack thereof. Apologies for being crude. Great tragedies are only noble when viewed from far. Up close, it is like falling face first into a bottomless dung heap. As you've probably surmised by now, my life hasn't exactly worked out according to plan. You know, poor lamentable me, minor celeb. Notoriety has its perks. It gets some butts in the seats, and I reliest on my butts to keep my body to its soul tethering. Unlike that great actress, Kate Claxton, surely you're acquainted. Louise, the teenage blind girl in The Two Orphans. 'Twas the part for which she was celebrated, the part she so nobly inhabited on December 21st, 1874, that the Brooklyn Theater burned to the ground. Kate was on stage when she did spy flames rising from the wings, but she shouldered on, trusting that a stagehand would soon douse them. And then when the flames raged in full view of the audience, she stepped to the footlights, calling out, "Do not be afraid. There is no danger. The flames are part of the play." Cue a burning chunk of wood which fell from the rafters near, braining her. The audience stampedes, and still she did stay on stage, calling for decorum, chivalry, and slow, orderly exits. She meant well. Her actions cost a lot of lives that night. That curtain should have run down at the first spark. The next year, Kate's on tour in St. Louis when her hotel catches fire. 40 people die. Kate survives by rolling down the stairs swathed in wet towels. After this, no theater manager on earth will hire her. Whensoe'er a theater does burn, the joke is Claxton's to blame. Apologies for taking you on so lengthy a tangent and for invoking the memory of the third worst theater fire in U.S. history, but bear with me, I appoint, namely, imagine thou art Kate Claxton. No savings, no man, no family money, thy youthful good looks on the wane, nothing save a few tasty eyewitness tidbits to hang on a tragic, oft-told tale. Now, imagine thou art me. Thy employers entrust thee with their greatest treasure, their only fucking child, and the kid and her new boyfriend, excuse me, husband of less than 2 days, kill themselves on your watch. Who's gonna hire you after that? No one. Props to Kate Claxton, she dusted the ash from her skirts and hit the lecture circuit. One night only, hear the ghastly events of the tragic Brooklyn theater fire recounted by the great thespian as did snatch her very life back from the jaws of certain death. After a few years of this, Kate had amassed sufficient funds to purchase the exclusive rights to The Two Orphans and to hire an acting company to go out on the road with her. Sold-out crowds who had eagerly thrilled to her riveting first-hand account of the Inferno did pay up the next night to see her company enact the very play their doomed counterparts had been watching on December 21st, 1874. Kate, in her capacity as casting director, did decide that she should again be awarded the plum role of Louise, the blind 16-year-old. She played that part for decades, until she was 55. Yeah, survival's not always dignified. Sometimes it's downright ridiculous, but thou useth what thou hast. It's a recurrent theme in my life as well. I entered Lord Capulet's employ when his hatchling was newly arrived. Her dam's teats yielded but a trickle of milk. Mine were full, but as yet untapped. I'd rather not get into the biology of that if thou dost not mind. We can always. She was the briefest of turn my milk to gall, but that's not how it works. One touch of nature doth make the whole world kin. Milk bound me to that highborn little baby, not blood. Has kenned. I was Juliet's wet nurse. I'm not an RN. And I admit I was bewitched by those rosy, rooting little lips, even as they did render the perkiness that had been my greatest asset into withered banana skins. What the French live in horror of. Why Lady Capulet so readily ceded that particular maternal task, whereas I just never could be bothered to tend to my appearance, and now 'tis too late. Even had I purse sufficient for the physics, plastic arts, I knew myself I would not maintain. Tis not to say that I am entirely reconciled. Oh, no, the looking glass is no villainous. Though, what need have I of a looking glass when there's an entire play based on my life? Oh yeah, some guy wrote a play. I have not read it, have not seen it, don't care to. There are condensed versions online, as do suffice. To choose one at random.
Once upon a time, there was this girl named, this woman named Julia and this man named Romeo. Then one day, Julia and Romeo went to a party, and then they fell in love, but they didn't tell their parents, because Juliet's parents and Romeo's parents were mad at each other. So then there was this man, and his name started with a T, and he killed Romeo's friend. So Romeo killed the person whose name started with a T, and then there are those people, and they're like, you killed our people, so we have to kill Romeo. Then Romeo's mom said for Romeo to go to this place and never come back, and then those people are like, Juliet, marry this person, because they didn't know that Juliet loved Romeo. So she told a church leader, like a leader, and then the leader gave her a potion that pretended that she died, and then she drank the potion, and her skin turned white, and you couldn't feel her blood. Then they put her like in this cave, and then they buried her. Then Romeo's like, oh no, I'm coming back. So he came in the cave, and he saw Julia, and he's like, no, you can't die, Julia. So she got a knife and killed himself. And for 1 hour, Julia would wake. Then when Julia woke, she saw Romeo. Then she got the knife, and then she killed herself. And that's the end of the story.
Incredible! I guess I must needs keep telling this tale. So, okay, I'll return you briefly to the bedchamber, where the bride, in her antsiness, doth command me down to the courtyard to rendezvous with Balthazar, Romeo's lad. 'Twas Balthazar charged with delivering the ladder, though thou mayest believe off imagining any construction of sturdy wood. 'Twere but a heavy snarl of hastily knotted ropes, and the moment it did transfer from Balthazar's arms into mine own, the surrounding cobbles rang out with footfalls. Lady Capulet was on the prowl. Save thyself, I hissed. Balthazar took off as if pursued by a bear. I wonder whatever happened to that sweet child. Weren't much older than Juliet by my reckoning. Used to send me greetings every Christmastide for decades. It was a little bit weird, and we didn't really know each other. Bound together by rope, I guess. And our affection for those we once served. Oh, he idolized Romeo. He blamed himself for all that didst follow, when, in truth, his sole crime was trying to help. Who was that lad with whom ye did converse, nurse? Queried Lady Capulet. A nobody, ma'am, I did respond, for that is how she did conceive of servants such as Balthazar and myself. To what purpose totes thee thy armload of hemp? Sounds as if she could smell I was up to no good. It's required in the kitchen, my lady. I didst improvise. A worthy gambit. That wench ne'er had any truck with anything having to do with foodstuff, save for the extremely minimal eating of it. I doubt she would have recognized her own kitchen had it bit her in the ass. To preserve mine own, I did think it meet to see my little charade through to its logical conclusion. So I dropped a curtsy, shouldered the rope like a sash, and backed into that aforementioned locale. I, of course, was no stranger to the kitchen. 'Twas my habit to enjoy a glass of mead or brandy with cook when her day's labors had ended. The washing up could always be entrusted to one of her dippy little helpmeets. Oh, they were a high-strung bunch. I never could be bothered to learn any of their names. Their tongues forever a wag with gossip and gore. How now, girls, I didst jape upon entry. What's the drama du jour? Romeo Montague slew Tybalt with a sword, piped the littlest. Thou dost remember Lord Tybalt, my lady's cousin, the pride of House Capulet? I didst follow where her finger did point, and beshrew me, there he was, laid out on the table, bedaubed in blood. Romeo had slit him open like a capon. Some Samaritans had carried him back rather than leave him to swelter in the noonday piazza. It was a matter of public health, but I don't think our kitchen were much improvement. Ice was but a seasonal item in those days. Seeing that strapping young moose so sectioned, my knees turned to clay, and down I went, rope and all. One of the little maids loosened my wimple, another fetched me a glass of water. Cook knocked it from her hands, calling for something stronger. I could scarce make out what had transpired, all those foolish little birdies twittering at once, but eventually it did out. Another dust-up twixt Capulet and Montague. Tybalt and Mercutio, that cheeky wretch from the well, did spar most viciously. 'Twas rumored that Romeo had inserted himself betwixt the combatants to try to broker peace, but this I do not believe, not even for a single second. They're nothing to get in the middle of these sword fights. It's not what the poets will have you believe. Cling, clang, clang, forsooth, hurrah, forsooth. No, it's fucking brutal, a bloodbath. And anyone who claims that he saw exactly what happened is lying. You rush to cover your eyes before you see someone's nose get cut off for him. I'm not joking. Everyone is a tough guy until his arm is severed below the bicep, and then they screech like rabbits. No one starts verse.
No.
That's the sort of violence that was visited on our Tybalt. It pains me to recall, even now, he was my lady's favorite. She was awfully fond of him. We all were. Villeneuve had a temper, looked for trouble, found it. In this regard, not so different from his jesting victim, the one he slew afore Romeo slew him. They say that is the order, and this I do believe. I'd be triggered too. If an enemy from the rival gang reached neath my armpit to jab a lethal hole in my best beloved friend, Mercutio, as dear to Romeo as a brother, as dear to him as Tybalt was to us. Ringcoxes, both of them. Oh, has this term fallen into disfavor too? It signifies an overabundance of testosterone, a tendency towards douchiness, a compulsion to both give and take offense. But that was just one side of our table. I don't think it made it into that play, but well, he could be silly too. He used to let our little Julie do his hair up in ribbons and bows, ride him round the courtyard like a pony. He was such a goodly big cousin. Taught her all the latest dance steps, the lyrics to the hit songs. Parsley, sage, it's rosemary time. Oh, she lived for stuff like that. Couldn't wait to seem more grown than she actually was. Be not in a rush, I did quote time and again. It's also fleeting. Wouldst thou leave the bush afore thou had stripped every sweet berry that grows there? Memento mori, markst me, younglings? What a fucking folly. Hey, I've got a good idea. Let's leave this kitchen forever. Get to thy feet. Command them to carry thee upstairs. The rope cares not that you are in shock. It clamors to be dangled from a balcony. My lady could tell from my countenance that something was sore amiss, and she clung to my garments, fearful that it had something to do with her husband. And she weren't wrong. Though I doubt she expected to hear that he had reduced her favorite cousin to foul worm chow so shortly after they parted with a kiss. She was stricken, of course. She loved her some Tybalt. Of course, she also loved the killer Romeo, a name she'd known for less than 24 hours at this point. Loved him more, apparently. It did sicken my stomach to hear it, and I told her so. I'll not repeat the ugly words she gave me in return, as if slaying the messenger could remove the black blot from her husband's soul. You know what, actually I amend that. She said those words knowing that they would wound but ne'er kill me. Nothing she ever said or did could have caused me to abandon her. In the end, she's the one who abandoned me. I think she felt cornered. You know, I mean, I would have. You impulsively marry some guy you just met and he turns around and snuffs one of your kinsmen. I mean, these things happen. But it's worth asking yourself, is this someone to stay with till death do us part? The remote has a pause button for a reason. But she was at that age. Moody, mercurial, couldn't tell her anything. 1 minute the sky's blue, the next it's peacock pussy pink. And heaven forfend any who dares contradict. Because no, fuck you, you don't know. You don't get to say that because you don't even know. She doubled down, hardened her heart to all but Romeo. She could have had Paris. Paris was a prince. Not literally, he was the prince's cousin, but in every aspect, an honest gentleman, courteous, virtuous, kind. That face, those legs, hard no, only Romeo would do. That ungrateful child serpent sunk her little tooth into my flesh and pumped me full of venom, and still expected that I would scour all Verona for him for the second time that day. Oh, maybe she would have preferred that I bore him back to her on a golden platter, surrounded by sugar plums. I probably would have. I spoiled her. I couldn't stand to see her cry. Jumped through any number of hoops to remain in her confidence, to stay relevant. Off I did trot, and where do you think I found him this time? Asprawl on the cold stone hearth of the friary, blubbering like a little bitch. I would not brook that for a single second. Callest thyself a man, recreant, a snivel, when atop a knotted rope a bereaved 13-year-old doth bawl for want of thee? You get that ass up off this floor afore my boot finds purchase in the whole of it for thee. Dumb kid. In truth, he were but a baby, too. Never the great lover boy that play shaped him as. Oh God, if it's a hunk the public to hunger for, why not the tragedy of Paris? Not some squirrely whelp with a puby little mustache. Shaved that thing in a single swipe. How he found the stones to o'erperch our walls, let alone marry and bed my gorgeous girl. Oh, they had their night of passion, all right. I saw to that. The two of them pounding away all night long, as what was left of poor Tybalt did smolder from chalk to chartreuse. A firmer-minded Christian would have pulled them asunder until a decent interval could be observed, but their window of opportunity was so very wee. Verona was no more safe for him. The Capulets had a bounty out on his head for what he had done to Tybalt. That boy was up with the cops. No, that's not an entendre. That's just how we used to call roosters once upon a time. We all knew what that sound did signify, though the young one sought to stave off the inevitable with silly talk of nightingales and larks. I thought I'd lose my shit. Let's go, kids! Pants on, dude! 'Twere a close shave. No sooner had Romeo scrambled back down his rope when Lady Capulet burst into the bedchamber. A fecund teenage miasma did hover above the bedclothes, but she remarked upon it not. You look up disinterested mother in thy encyclopedia. When you get home tonight, you'll sure find her likeness there. Meanwhile, Juliet was near catatonic. The remix to Ignition had been cut most cruelly short. Her man had pulled out all the way to Mantua. 'Twas but 22 miles and surrounded by a moat. Given the timing, I could well see how Lady Capulet's entrance could play as farce. She had an announcement, very special bulletin to share. Namely, she and her husband had hit upon the perfect remedy to dispel the gloom cast by the villain Romeo's murder of dear Tybalt. A wedding 2 days hence. The county Paris to Juliet! That's right! I'll wager almost all of you saw that coming, but Juliet did not. Of course, she freaks. Which would have been better had she freaked internally, but teenage oats and teenage pride declared that there must be a scene! Oh, what a scene it was! The minute this tsunami is gaining force! Enter her sire, Lord Capulet, intent on claiming a face full of grateful girlish kisses he felt sure were his due for having brokered her such a goodly match. Poor sot. How was he to know that his virgin compliant maid had been transformed literally overnight by a vigorous consensual dicking? Not with kisses, but a torrent of invective! Oh, one can well imagine how a man of Capulet's stripe did respond to such abuse. I fear he'd snap her neck. His wife did too, and we worked together to prevent it. 'Tis not to say that the lady was not possessed of a mighty otter. She was, just not so mighty as she'd see her only child dead or cast into the street. You know, back then, obedience to one's parents was not viewed as optional. 10 Commandments and all that. Not keep harping on that odious play, but if that playwright had just done a moment's research, he would have known how the court of public opinion did rule. Namely, those kids got what they had coming. They fucked things up for their families, brought shame on their noble houses. Some even ventured the opinion that the only thing that girl did right was stab herself in the heart. Sorry to spring that on you. Did not scan the trigger warning. The tragedy of Romeo and Juliet isn't that they loved each other so hard they preferred death to living without each other. 'Twas their refusal to submit. I don't think that's how it's taught in school these days. You give a 21st century 13-year-old an ultimatum such as Lord Capulet gave Juliet. Here is some rando. Mate with him for life, or I cast you into the street. Fuck you, no. They're a sophisticated bunch, I will grant. My body, my choice. And sex work is work, claim the buttons on their book bags. Both goodly sentiments, but I fear they do underestimate the sort of horrors that awaited every 13-year-old girl whose father cast her into the streets of 14th century Verona. Multiply pretty baby by taxi driver and then make it about 100 times worse. Lord knows what would have become of me had that been my lady's fate. She was fierce, but her papa did not play. I was amazed that he would grant her a few hours to change her tune. I mean, he didn't know about the whole Romeo thing, of course. He just thought her a churlish brat with some weird bug up her rear about marriage or Paris or... mayhaps a red tide did make a bitch of her. Lady business. That's why we pay a nurse. Bye! And her parents swept from the bedchamber. Poor Juliet fell to pieces, begging my comfort and counsel. Well, I quoth, I guess, were I in your shoes, I would cut my losses and throw in with Paris. You think I had a thing for Paris, don't you? I'll grant I do speak of him overmuch, but only because I can't stop thinking about how well suited he was. If Romeo had stayed in Mantua as he was meant to, she would have had to marry Paris. She would have had no choice. Her father would have insisted. With time, her fondness for her first husband would fade. She could have had a second act. Babies for me to dandle in my dotage. Forgive me, I want to say something here. It's possible I already have, but I want you to hear it, really hear it. 'Tweren't love, 'twas infatuation. Surely one of the savoriest confections of which you can sample, especially if the plate is shared. But as a meal, it cannot sustain. Knowest thou how that playwright and several composers and choreographers and poets and painters and filmmakers beside did spin this crush as the greatest love story ever told? The timing, Saturday night to Wednesday morning, half a week. Had their infatuation been allowed to play itself out along a normal course, there would have been no tragedy. No tale worth telling. You could have been seeing Stereophonic tonight. They just didn't have time to get sick of each other. Things thou they wouldn't have. They were so young. Of course they thought it was love. They thought they had invented it. Had she a notebook, she would have doodled his name all over it. That's how real it was. Like cotton candy. And who can begrudge a child for wanting to eat a pink cloud? But couldn't live without each other? No. Fuck that. I reject that. That's something you earn. That is for the distance runners who stick it out through all the squabbles and obstacles and diagnoses of dementia, depression, getting laid off, offspring, sure, why not? Slings and arrows come with that one. I don't know, what are people into these days? Polyamory, open marriage, middle-age transition journeys. You make it together out the other side of all that, and then yes, maybe you can't live without each other. But I'm guessing you still do. What's far more likely is you start sobbing in the cereal aisle because Raisin Bran, that was her favorite. Wonder why it always mattered so much that the dishwasher was never loaded exactly to your specifications. Curse yourself for every small kindness you accepted without a word of gratitude. Any of you playwrights want to write a play about that? That Tuesday morning, when I did enter into her bedchamber and find her cold as stone and white as a wimple, well, I thought she was dead. And so would you have, thanks to that toxic sleepy time cocktail that fucking Friar whipped up for her. Oh, the great herbalist. I'm amazed that his potion performed exactly as he had promised her it would. It would have been far more realistic and it killed her straight away. You know, living in this time of miracle medicines, it's easy to forget that people used to drop dead all the time. The lower classes, obviously, but also young ladies of Juliet's rank were far from immune. It was mostly just bad luck, bad water, bad shellfish, childbirth, childhood. Nothing so pernicious as opioids or cyberbullying. Shit just happened. We expected it. Though even back then, when heaven didst claim a child for every child it let live to see their 5th birthday, there was no real steeling yourself for such an event. How I did scream! Played right into their hands. I will curse myself forever for having given her permission to visit that friary. I should have smelled a rat when not 2 hours after Romeo's departure and that showdown with her folks, she did declare herself sore ashamed of how she'd defied her father, said she would gladly do his bidding and marry Paris, but not afore she had purified herself with holy confession. I told her to go with God. How could I forget confession was our motherfucker? I never dreamed she would use it against me as a curse fucker. Oh, and speaking of getting fucked, how much do you want to bet that that fucking friar is the one who put her up to cutting me out of the loop entirely? Is thy nurse a gifted actress, m'lady? No? Oh, pity. Perhaps we best not inform her of our plan. Ignorance is the only way that poor thing screams can sound authentic. Wouldn't want a hammy hot mess to tip our hand, now would we? I hope he's happy. My screams shook our entire household from their beds. They had to peel the neighbors off the ceiling. We tended to her body as we had so recently to Tybalt's. In her case, very little prettying up was required. I've since learned that that friar swore up and down to her he would get word to Mantua for her, bring her husband up to speed. I mean, heaven forfend, I be allowed to share in their little plot, but oh God, no, dear Romeo must not be left to suffer so much as a second's pain. 'Twas all timed out according to the funeral rites for the highborn. If the friar's messenger made haste to Mantua, and if Romeo were given a fresh steed for the return trip to Verona, Juliet would awaken with her love alongside. And so she did. Except he was dead. As in dead. The lethal dram he'd swallow it was the real thing, not some soporific party trick. He procured it on the way out of Mantua, but delayed the drinking of it until he could lay with his lady once more. You look confused. Is further explication warranted? I'll grant 'tis convoluted, especially if English is not thy first language, or thy recall of 7th grade reading assignments has been from him dim. Attend. Balthasar, remember Balthasar, Romeo's lad, the kid with the rope? His master had hastened to Mantua without him, leaving dear little Balthasar free to stumble unsuspecting upon our sad procession to the Capulet crypt. Like me, he mistook the potion's likeness of stark death still in Juliet's features for her actual corpse. In horror, he lit out from where else? Mantua, to break the news to Romeo with all the tenderness he could muster, which would have been fine had he not beaten the friar's messenger there, Friar John or Friar Tuck or Little John. That idiot had but one job to do, to pass Romeo a sealed envelopes whose contents detailed the particulars of an incredibly elaborate mousetrap style scheme already well underway. Instead, this moron makes a pit stop to see a buddy, another fucking friar now. And it turns out that this other friar has been exposed to plague, obliging them both to immediately stop what they're doing and quarantine in place. Not so creaky a plot device as it must have seemed once upon a time. Upon hearing Balthasar's sad tidings, Romeo hastens to the nearest apothecary, picks his poison, and books it to Verona. Oh, he also managed to kill Paris on the steps of the Capulet crypt, but let's not go there. I can only imagine Milady's terror when her eyelids did flutter open as innocently as Snow White's. Poison, real poison, does not make for a dainty exit. Other maids would have fled in terror. Mine grabbed a dagger and they were able to construct a forensic timeline based on the position and condition of the bodies. Only that fucking friar, Lawrence, had not supplanted me as aider and abettor. I know. At the very least, she would have pinned a note to her nightie. Hey, nurse. Sorry to scare you. I know it looks like I'm dead, but guess what? I'm alive. Yay! I need you to play along, though, okay? Don't show this note to my parents. I promise. I will explain everything when I wake up tonight. Heart, heart, tears of joy, winky face, eggplant, eggplant, jewel. A girl worth just a piece of my identity. She was my whole identity. She did seem much lighter when she returned from making her mother fuck her that final morning of her life. She gave me a little hug, asked would I pack up a few bits and bobs for her honeymoon, told me I could wheel the rest by in a barrel after she'd had time to settle into Paris's villa. She even got me to stay up half the night with her mother, addressing the envelopes and making the menu. I'm a fool. It just didn't have to be this way. It didn't have to end this way. Oh, don't worry, I've let go of Paris. I could tell from my expressions early on it was a non-starter. There was a different, better option. It's a pity it only dawned on me after I had centuries to ruminate. It's a bit out there. Almost like something that addle-pated playwright would have come up with. Aren't curious?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if we traded her maidenly stomacher and kirtle gown for a pair of rough breeches, tucked her hair up under a hood, got her a map, got her a donkey, changed her pronouns. What up, traveler, a word? Hast thou any news of a low-born young lad goes by the name of Julian? So fair one might mistake him for a maid. I hear he's bound for Mantua. And from thence, Lucca, maybe? Viareggio? A balmy location where love's first flower might well take root. I could have followed by a later donkey. Throw in some jesters and call it a comedy.